How's it going? My name is Michael, and I want to welcome you as we continue to attempt to demystify the Bible. It not only records world history, the writings within it have shaped world history. Beliefs, cultures, nations, they've all been influenced by what is written on these pages. And as an apprentice to Jesus, it's my desire to engage with the scriptures in the healthiest way possible. Hopefully you can relate. And so once a month, I'm going to share some helpful tips I've picked up over the years in order to help you engage with the Bible in a more meaningful way. This month, I want to look at a common misconception. If someone were to ask you what the Bible is, most people would start by declaring, well, it's a book. And then, of course, they would go on to explain the importance of that book. But right from the outset, they've actually already spoken a misnomer. You see, technically speaking, the Bible is not a book. Now, I realize the word Bible actually comes from Latin, and it does literally mean book, but what is crucial for followers of Jesus to appreciate is that the Bible is more accurately described as an ancient library, a library of 66 different books written in 3 languages over the course of over 1,500 years by more than 40 different authors and on 3 different continents. Now, this isn't just semantics, this matters more than you might think, and here's why. You approach a library very differently to how you approach a single book. For instance, a book usually has one genre. It's a novel or a cookbook or a biography or a textbook or a comic book. However, a library contains all the various genres. And when you grab different books off the shelf, you don't expect to read them in the same manner. You don't read poetry like you do legal documents. You don't read history like you do fables. And you don't read song lyrics like you do census records. All sorts of problems emerge when people treat the Bible like it's one flat document instead of a diverse, dynamic library. The Bible contains historical narrative, codified laws, poetry, proverbs, prophecy, parables, and personal letters. Plus, it has a style of writing known as apocalyptic, which doesn't even exist anymore. Now, one of the potential pitfalls of failing to remember the Bible as a library is that we may face the temptation to read it all literally, when in fact we need to read it literarily. What I mean by that is that we need to read it according to genre. Now, before anyone listening to this panics, I'm not telling you that I believe the things the Bible is claiming are untrue or unreal. I'm simply saying we need to read them within context and within the rules of the specific genre they were written in. In my experience, what poetry is communicating can sometimes be more accurate than a spreadsheet, and symbolism can sometimes communicate something far deeper than even a photograph. And so key to engaging with the Bible in the healthiest way possible is to always take time to consider the type of literature you're reading. Now, let me quickly recap the 7 most common literary styles you'll find in your Bible. First up, historical narrative. These are summary accounts of people and events. You find them in much of the Old Testament, in the Gospels, and books like Acts. Their goal is to tell you what happened. That's it. They give highlights, not every detail. And something else actually to pay attention to in narrative sections is place names. Don't skim them. Locations actually have reputations. Like if I said Las Vegas, something comes to your mind. If I said Normandy, something comes to your mind, or at least if you're a history buff. If I say Ground Zero, something comes to your mind. Biblical place names work the same way for ancient readers. When a writer casually mentions a town, the original audience felt the weight of that geography. We don't, which means sometimes we have to slow down and do a little bit digging. Second, we've got law, and these are specific instructions given to Israel, primarily found in Genesis through Deuteronomy, and many of these laws govern Israel's civil life and religious ceremonies. Third, we've got poetry. The Bible is filled with songs and poems, especially in Psalms, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, and Lamentation. Now, here's something fascinating, or at least I find it fascinating. English poetry rhymes in sound, Hebrew poetry rhymes in thought. Fourth, we have Proverbs, and these are wise sayings about how life generally works. And this is crucial. Proverbs are principles, not promises. They're generally true, but they're not guaranteed formulas. Fifth, we have prophecy. Prophetic writings use symbolic language to communicate messages from God. Found largely in books like Isaiah and Revelation, they often include visions and imagery. The context is everything. Many prophetic promises were directed at the original audience, and if you ignore that, you actually risk misapplying them to your life. Sixth, we have parables, which are fictional stories designed to communicate spiritual truth. Jesus loved teaching through parables. A parable throws something familiar next to something profound. It's comparison teaching. And finally, we've got epistles. And epistles were letters written to real people in real situations. The New Testament is largely made up of letters. And knowing why the letter was written, who it was written to, and what was going on at the time of the writing is crucial. Now, here's another reason why all this matters. The meaning of words changes depending on the context. If you read the word rock in the sports section of a magazine, it might be referring to a basketball. If you read it in a music magazine, it's referring to a genre. If you read it in a geography textbook, it's referring to a mineral. And if you read it in a crime novel, it could be referring to a diamond. The word doesn't change, the context does, and context drives meaning. And so when you open your Bible, don't flatten it. Don't force every sentence to function the same way. Instead, ask, what kind of writing is this? Who wrote it down? And to whom? And why? And when you start reading the Bible as a library, not as a single book, it may stop feeling so confusing and might start feeling a little more coherent. Not only that, but I think you'll also begin to see the brilliance of how God chooses to reveal himself through poetry, through story, through law, through letters, through visions, and through wisdom. And not just through one voice, but many. Well, thanks for watching. I'm cheering you on as you do your best to read the scriptures right and live them well.